Hey YouTube, what's up? Brett Mayfield here. Kind of want to get back with you on another video. Just to let you know, since I've been back to Tennessee, it's either been too rainy or too windy for me to fly, so I hadn't really been able to get out and fly much. Give me a good time to kind of go over some stuff that I've heard talked about. A few questions asked on my YouTube channel about as far as what I've been trained on FAR aims and things of that nature. It's very important. I had some training with Kurt Pfister on the FAR 103. I don't know what others have received, but it was discussed mildly, but it was discussed more or less put on us to look it up and make sure you understand it. So that's kind of what I'm here to do is put this out there for you guys that don't know or haven't been trained on it or whatever. Look it up. It's real simple. Google it. FAR, F-A-R 103, and check it out. It's not very long. It's only a couple pages. It pertains to us. I'm going to kind of go over that in this video real briefly, but I'm telling you to look it up. There's two things that you need to look up: is FAR 103 and FAR Part 91. Part 91 only pertains to us very little, but there are some things that does pertain to us. When I say us, that's talking about a power paraglider or paramotor. Ultralight class is what the FAA calls it. So look it up real quick, and I'm going to kind of have some pop-ups on here as far as what the FAA actually says on Part 103. So 103.1, the applicability prescribes the rules governing the operation of ultralight vehicles, which is what the paramotors fall under. If it is a manned operation by a single occupant, is intended for recreational or sport use only. That means no commercial activities, can't be paid for anything that you're doing. You don't have to have a U.S. or foreign airworthiness certificate, basically meaning your aircraft has been checked by a federal agency determining that it's safe to fly. You also, if it's unpowered, it has to weigh less than 155 pounds. If it's powered, it has to weigh less than 254 pounds. That's excluding floats and any kind of safety devices which are intended for deployment in any kind of potentially catastrophic situations. If it is, it has to have a fuel capacity of not exceeding 5 U.S. gallons. It is not capable of 55 knots of calibrated airspeed at full power and level flight, and has a power off stall speed which does not exceed 24 knots of calibrated speed. So if your paramotor falls into that in anything in that category, you're an ultralight, and you don't have to have a piloted certificate or any kind of airworthiness registration or anything like that for your aircraft. Kind of what we fall into. Inspection requirements 103.3. Any person operating an ultralight vehicle under this part shall, upon request, allow the administrator or his designee to inspect the vehicle to determine applicability of this part, which means if you are stopped by an FAA personnel, you have to let them check it out and make sure it falls under the category of an ultralight. The pilot or operator of an ultralight vehicle must, upon request of the administrator, furnish satisfactory evidence that the vehicle is subject only to the provisions of this Part 103. Basically, if you don't give them a hard time, they're probably not going to give you a hard time. Part 103.5, waivers. No person may conduct operations that require deviation from this part except under written waiver issued by the administrator. So essentially, if you want to, just for giggles, I don't know, say you want to run a 10-gallon tank on your paramotor, if you write the FAA and explain to them why you're wanting to do that, they might issue you a waiver. Make sure you got that with you. So if you do get checked by FAA, you can say, hey, I have a waiver from the FAA that says I can have this larger fuel tank. I'm not saying they would do that. I'm just throwing it out there. It's possible. I mean, I don't know that's what a waiver consists of. 103.7, certification and registration. Notwithstanding any other section pertaining to the certification of aircraft or their parts or equipment, ultralight vehicles and their component parts and equipment are not required to meet the airworthiness certification. Are not required to meet the airworthiness certification standards specified for the aircraft to have certificates of airworthiness. So basically, that means you don't have to have an airworthiness certificate. Notwithstanding any other section pertaining to airman certification, operators of ultralight vehicles are not required to meet aeronautical knowledge, age or experience requirements to operate those vehicles, or to have an airman or a medical certificate, which means you don't have to have a license or a medical certificate to fly it. Notwithstanding any other section pertaining to registration and marking of aircraft, ultralight vehicles are not required to be registered or to bear markings of any type, which means you don't have to have any kind of N numbers or anything like that attached to your paraglider. 103.9, hazardous operations. No person may operate any ultralight vehicle in a manner that creates a hazard to other persons or property. No person may allow an object to be dropped from an ultralight vehicle if such action creates a hazard to other persons or property. 103.11, which is daylight operations. No person may operate an ultralight vehicle except between the hours of sunrise and sunset. You can Google that on your phone anytime you want to fly and see what your sunset and sunrise hours are. But there is a provision made, notwithstanding paragraph A of this section, ultralight vehicles may be operated during the twilight periods 30 minutes before official sunrise and 30 minutes after official sunset, or in Alaska during the period of civil twilight as defined in the Air Almanac, if the vehicle, now this is the key, you can do 30 minutes before sunrise, 30 minutes before sunset, if your vehicle is equipped with an operating anti-collision light visible for at least 3 statute miles and all operations are conducted in uncontrolled airspace. So that means you can't fly in the D or like the A, B, C, and D airspace, or any E airspace that's controlled by an airport. 103.13, operation near aircraft and right-of-ways. Each person operating an ultralight vehicle shall maintain vigilance so as to see and avoid aircraft and should yield the right-of-way to all aircraft. So it tells me that we have to yield right-of-way to all aircraft. No person may operate an ultralight vehicle in a manner that creates a collision hazard with respect to any aircraft. Sounds like common sense to me there. Powered ultralights shall yield right-of-way to unpowered ultralights. The way I read all that is we're at the bottom of the totem pole. We yield right-of-way to everything, sounds like. 103.15, operations over congested areas. No person may operate an ultralight vehicle over any congested area of a city, town, or settlement, or over any open air assembly of persons. It's just CYA on the FAA's part. 103.17, operations in certain airspace. No persons may operate an ultralight vehicle within Class A, Class B, Class C, or Class D airspace, or within the lateral boundaries of the surface area of Class E airspace designated for an airport, unless that person has either or has prior authorization from the ATC facility having jurisdiction over that airspace, which means you can't operate an ultralight basically in Class A, B, C, or D airspace, which is all controlled airspace. Class E airspace, some airports have Class E airspace, and if you're in an area of Class E airspace within the confinements of an airport, you have to contact that airport and have prior clearance to fly in that area. Just at least let them know what you're doing. 103.19, operations in prohibited or restricted areas. No person may operate an ultralight vehicle in prohibited or restricted areas unless that person has permission from the using or controlling agency as appropriate. 103.20, flight restrictions in the proximity of certain areas designated by notice to airmen, or NOTAMs, NOTAM apostrophe S, I believe it is, NOTAMs. No person may operate an ultralight vehicle in areas designated in a notice to airmen under 91.141 or 91.143 of this chapter unless authorized by the ATC. 103.21, visual reference with surface. No person may operate an ultralight vehicle except by visual reference with the surface, which means you can fly as high as you want as long as you can see the ground, according to the FAA. 103.23, flight visibility and cloud clearance requirements. I'll leave this up there just a little bit. I'm not going to go over every one of these. You can kind of look at it and see it for yourself. Like I said, Google all this. You can find it online. Look at it if you need to. No person may operate an ultralight vehicle when the flight visibility or distance from clouds is less than that in the table. All operations in Class A, B, C, and Class D airspace or Class E airspace designated for an airport must receive prior ATC, which is air traffic control, authorization as required in 103.17 of this part. And as you see, if you look at the airspaces there, it gives you the flight visibility and the distance from clouds that you must maintain during your flight. And that covers the FAR 103 section. It's not a whole lot there, but there is some rules you kind of need to make yourself familiar with. The next thing we'll be looking at will be the FAR Part 90. Covers FAR Part 91 in a nutshell. It's probably about 4 or 5 pages of information there on Part 91. Like I said, they go into a lot more detail as far as to what particular events you can't fly over, or specifics of what they're talking about. It's a lot more detail there. So like I said, I encourage you, go online, Google FAR Part 103 and FAR Part 91. Both of those, print them off, keep them with you, study them, look over them. So it never hurts to keep yourself informed, keep learning. A pilot that I've recently come in contact with, he does a lot of good training. Now this is an actual FAA pilot. He's Jason Shepard is his name, and his key closing phrase on every video that he does or everything that he does is, a good pilot is always learning. And there's no better truth than that right there. So if you want to be a better pilot, whether you're flying ultralights or you're flying big aircraft, or doesn't matter if you're flying, you can drive, whatever you're doing, keep yourself informed. That's the whole purpose of this video right here, is just keeping yourself informed. And there's certain things, part of your training, that you're going to have to take upon yourself and do. Somebody's not going to hold your hand and walk you through everything that you need to do. So make sure that you take it upon yourself. And whoever your instructor is, or whatever, whoever you're using, they're not going to take you through every aspect of everything. There's parts of it you're going to have to be responsible for to do yourself. So just remember that, and check out my next video. Like I said, coming up, I'm going to do a helmet build, and it's probably not going to be anything super special, anything that somebody else hadn't already done, but I'm just going to kind of go through it the way I'm going to build it. I'm going to do a complete helmet build with the headset, and also with the GoPro attached to it and everything, and try to go through a little bit better as far as what it does and how it works and everything like that. So we'll try it out and see. So until then, see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.